You're listening to Talking Property on 2UE. Thanks to Frasers Property. The difference is real. Go to frasersproperty.com.au.
Thanks for your company this evening, Peter Esho and Clinton Maynard. We are talking property on 2UE 1332, brought to you by Frasers Property, one of the best developers in Sydney and right across the country. I've often dreamed, Peter, about living on the water. An idyllic experience would be to live on the river or to live on the harbour.
You're always telling me about it, I know.
You know what? Believe it or not, I can't afford to live on the water. But interestingly, Frasers have developed several new developments over the years, and some of these date back quite a few years, that actually give people that chance of living out their dream. Glenn Colquhoun is the Development Director at Frasers and joins us this evening. G'day, Glenn.
G'day, Clinton. How are you?
Mate, thanks for coming in. I wanted to talk to you about the dream of living on the water. It, for many of us, is a dream that we think is completely unattainable, but that's actually not necessarily the case.
No, it's not. That's quite correct. We're developing a project there that's providing a range of opportunities for people to live close to and near the water. It's an amazing location, Shell Cove, and I've been very proud and honoured and fortunate enough to be able to work on that project for a number of years.
So you're involved in the Shell Cove project. So it's on the south coast in the Shellharbour region?
That's right. It's about 2 hours from the south of Sydney and then just south of Wollongong.
See, Shellharbour, lovely beautiful part of the world. I live in the south of Sydney, so I live in Engadine. We actually went down there, it would have been about 6 months ago. We had to take the kids to the movies, Shellharbour movies. You might say, why go down there to the movies? There was something playing that wasn't playing in Sydney, so we went down there. From the south of Sydney, it probably took us about an hour, maybe an hour 15.
It's not that far.
So it's not far.
No, it's quite close. We're finding a lot of our buyers are coming from Sydney now.
Right.
And it's an opportunity to capture that seaside, sea change lifestyle, but still be close enough to all that amenity that Sydney has to offer. So you're not far away, but yeah, still that great amenity on the seaside.
So tell us about the development itself. What's it made up of?
Well, the project, it's quite a diverse project, and I've been involved in the project for 17 years now, and it's captivated me and held my interest for a long time.
Yeah.
It's a great project, but we're delivering it. We're building a new suburb that'll house about 8,000 people when it's fully completed, about 3,000 new homes. But we're also building some really significant regional infrastructure. We've developed a golf course, which has been operating for about 10 years now. And we're halfway through building a new boat harbour. That's a really significant boat harbour. It'll be roughly about 30% larger than Darling Harbour when it's completed, and it'll house about 300 floating pontoon berths.
So, Glenn, just to get this right, this is a project that has been in operation for how many years now, from the conception?
It's been under development for about 20 years. It's got a long history in the Illawarra region. It was originally conceived by the Department of Public Works many years ago.
Right. It's about 5,000 dwellings so far, is that right, or 8,000?
It's about 2,000 dwellings.
2,000 so far,
yes.
And potentially how much more is coming?
There's another 1,000 to 1,500 dwellings to go.
Okay, excellent. And what type of dwelling is it? Is it an apartment, a townhouse, a terrace, or an actual freestanding house?
Well, the great thing is we're creating a diversity of housing choice in this location. So we're offering land lots, and a variety of land lots that people can build their own home on, and we have design guidelines that influence the architecture and make sure that we get great outcomes. We're building medium density terrace style homes, so between 2 to 3 and 4 bedroom terraces, and we're about to launch some apartments. It'll be closer to the waterfront and the harbour edge in about 12 months.
Well, Glenn, that's what interests me. If you do dream of living somewhere on the coastal strip in Sydney, and we've been talking about the housing affordability issue in Sydney, it is, let's be honest, it is tough. If you want to be on that coastal fringe, a coastal suburb, you're going to need to have been in the market probably for quite a few years yourself.
A lot,
Now, if you're a younger home buyer and you do have that desire, that dream to live in the vicinity of the water, so maybe not a water frontage property itself, but in the vicinity of being able to get to the harbour, to get to the beach, this could open up that opportunity?
Oh, certainly. I mean, everyone that's built and developed and purchased from us to date has the opportunity to be able to walk to the beach and walk. Yes, definitely walk, and the new boat harbour that we're developing, it'll be right in a central location. It's going to open up a lot of opportunity for a lot of our residents and the future residents.
For our listeners that may not be too familiar with Shellharbour itself, where does this development sit? How significant is it? How close is it to the amenities, and just a bit of a geographic rundown?
Geographically, it's about 30 minutes south of Wollongong. There's quite a strong centre already in Shellharbour, where there's a hospital. Stockland's Shellharbour Mall is there, so there's quite a significant regional.
Yeah, that's where those movie theatres that I was telling you about. Yeah,
and we have a lot of amenity there. So we've got some of the best and most beautiful beaches anywhere on the south. Well, anywhere in New South Wales. I'm a surfer, and I moved down there, and it's the best part of the job for me is that I've been able to move my family down and live in that environment and go surfing every day almost.
So were you from Sydney originally?
Originally, yes. And I moved down for this job.
So the difference between bringing up kids in Sydney or bringing up kids in that sort of environment, would you recommend it?
Oh, highly. It's been great for my children. I've got a 16 and a 15-year-old, and they love living down there, and a great opportunity for them.
What type of buyers are you seeing? If you were to provide a bit of a snapshot, who's your average person coming into the community, and how has that changed from 10 years ago maybe?
Certainly, the demographic has shifted quite substantially, and we've got a very broad demographic range of people that buy into our project. About 10 years ago, we were mainly selling land lots, so we were appealing to mum and dad buyers, so 35 to 45 with a family.
Yep.
We're now producing a lot more diverse housing choice, so we're getting a lot more diversity in the people that are buying there. So we're getting younger couples, we're getting families, but we're getting empty nesters and retirees, which is really adding to the diversity of the community, which has been a great outcome for us. Particularly recently, we're getting a lot more buyers coming down from Sydney in that empty nester, retiree age range. They're seeing it as an opportunity to sell up in Sydney, move to the south coast, still be close to all the amenity and their friends in Sydney, and but have that lifestyle that's a second to none.
And if it's not much more than an hour away from Sydney, that's a big selling point for people who might want to see change, but might not want to go to, say, Byron Bay or the far north coast. It gives you that accessibility to Sydney still. You mentioned you have teenage kids, and I think another thing that might be worth pointing out is being half an hour south of Wollongong, you're half an hour away from Wollongong University. So if you're worried about your kids' longer-term education once they finish school, Wollongong University is absolutely world-class these days. I mean, I went there 20 years ago, and it's actually changed a lot in those 20 years.
Yeah, no, Wollongong University is doing great things. It's ranked as one of the top universities internationally.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the drivers for our economy regionally in that location.
Glenn, one of the things that comes to mind when I think South Coast is employment issues. I mean, they're very well documented, and you always hear about bad news to the steel industry down south and the lack of jobs. And what's your assessment? How do you see it? Is there any upside? Is there any silver lining that perhaps we miss up here in Sydney?
Well, it's quite interesting actually, because the Illawarra region, and particularly the area in Shellharbour, was driven 20 years ago by the steelworks.
Yeah.
And it was a dormitory suburb created for workers in the steel industry.
Yes.
So at that point, there were 20 to 30,000 workers. There's a big change and a quantum shift in the way the employment sector is focused in the region. That's shifted to about 3,000 workers in the steelworks, and it's a much broader, more diverse economy down in the region. So the university, the port, hospitality, healthcare, aged care have become big drivers in employment, and that's shifted quite substantially, and the whole variety of factors are playing into that. And it's interesting because Shell Cove was originally conceived, the project, as a stimulus to the regional economy back 20 or 30 years ago, because we've always had a high youth unemployment, and Shell Cove will provide some of that employment in the region for the youth.
You mentioned the project's now been going on for 17 odd years. How many more years until you're full, basically, until it's fully developed?
Look, we're currently forecasting it's about 8 years. But
Right, so plenty of life in it still as a development.
Well, we're halfway through constructing at Boat Harbour, and it is a major piece of infrastructure, as I said. And it's 5 years to build that, just 5 years civil construction. We're moving 1.3 million cubic metres of earth.
Right.
Physically building it, it's quite a substantial undertaking. We're building a new town centre, which will have apartments in the town centre, a new retail centre, an Eat Street precinct with restaurants sitting on the harbour foreshore, al fresco dining, a new tavern, a hotel, community centre and library, all focused in one location. So it's very exciting.
Just on the harbour, you've mentioned it a couple of times. and I initially didn't pick up on it, but now I'm envisaging it, I'm thinking about it. What does it actually look like? Is it a marina type of harbour, or is it more a transport shipping type of harbour?
It's definitely designed as a recreational boating harbour, so it won't be a hard industry harbour.
Yeah.
It's designed for recreational boating people, so it'll accommodate yachts and game fishing charter boats and game fishing boats. So
very interesting. And how far away is that from being completed?
we're about halfway through construction.
Wow.
So
Right.
by early 2019, the boat harbour and the first
That's a
berths
huge
will be
project.
delivered. So
That's a huge project.
It is, and it's going to be really game changer for the region. It'll open up marine tourism because there's no real strong, safe anchorages between Bateman's Bay and Sydney. So it's really opening an opportunity for coastal hopping down the coast and that opportunity for people to holiday in their boats down the coast.
Last week on the program, we were talking a little about sustainability, and
Yes.
given this is a waterfront region on the south coast, a pristine area of the state, I'd imagine that is at the forefront of your mind as well with this development.
Oh, definitely. It's been a considerable motivator from us as a company to make sure that the footprint we leave is not harmful, that we limit that. So there's a number of elements. There was an old tip on the site which we've had to remediate.
Right.
So it's fully remediated and site order has been through. So that's been a good outcome environmentally. Moving that much material, it's an environmental issue, so that's had to be managed very, very carefully and closely. So from a sustainability perspective, all that material, the 1.3 million cubic metres of earth that we're moving, all stays on the site. It's reused. We're reprocessing the material, so we're excavating rock, and the rock is being reprocessed, and it will go into construction of the breakwater and groin, which creates the entry to the harbour, and the linings for the harbour. So every piece of earth that we're moving is being reused on the site. So,
And I think, Peter, this is a demonstration of what we've been talking about with Frasers Property for a few weeks. It is not simply about putting up a new apartment building. It's not about building a new satellite suburb. It's about creating a community, and particularly with what you're doing with Boat Harbour, that demonstrates that.
And I mean, if you're potentially thinking of moving down from Sydney to Shellharbour, you want to move where all the action is, right? You want to get it right. You don't want to get it wrong, because living in a cosmopolitan, major metropolitan Sydney like Sydney, the suburbs, you could pick one suburb over another, but you're still within the action. Whereas if you do move down to that type of precinct, you really need to make sure that the community aspect is there.
Glenn, I was mentioning it's a dream to live near the water or on the water. What sort of price range are we looking at to make that dream a reality?
well, there's a variable price range, and it depends on the housing choice. So for a land lot, it ranges from between $500,000 and $700,000 at present. That's a bit back from the water, but within an easy 5-minute walk. And then we've got medium density terrace homes that range from the 580 mark up to about 980. So broad range of product choice.
Excellent.
And you're talking walk.
Yeah.
We're not talking getting in the car and driving for half an hour through Sydney's traffic.
No, we're talking about
It's a
definitely
walk.
walking. The houses we're selling at the moment, you'll be able to walk to the beach, the
Wonderful.
the boat harbour, and to the retail and the convenience of those shops within 300 metres.
Just
So
a last question, if I could squeeze one in. What's the schooling like from a primary school perspective or a high school perspective?
very good. From a primary school perspective, we've got one of the best primary schools in the area within Shell Cove. So it was one of the first schools to be developed under the public-private partnership scheme by the state government. So it's a really good school, and people come to Shell Cove because of the school. It's one of the reasons.
Oh, wonderful.
And there's some great high schools in the region, and obviously universities as well.
Excellent. Well, great to have you on the program.
Yeah, thanks for coming in and filling us in about it. It sounds like a wonderful development. I'll certainly have a look when I get into that
Very
movie
nice.
theatre again.
Very interesting.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you, Glenn. Glenn Colquhoun, who's the Development Director at Frasers Property. That is Shell Cove. If you want more details, give Frasers Property a call, 13 38 38. And that wraps up Talking Property for this week. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Clinton.
We'll
Great
do
show.
it all again next Monday night from 6 o'clock, of course, answering all your property questions.